Good afternoon and welcome to the Product Buzz. I'm your host, Lacey Asher, and I have a special guest today. Man, I'm just super excited to interview Ryan Nichols today. He's a dear friend of mine. We've met back in 2016, and it's actually a really cool story. If you want to kind of share with me, like how we met at Gold Rush Rally, of course.
Well, Lacey, thanks
Which,
for having me on today.
of course.
We met car rally, like you were saying. Uh, got the chance to spend 10 days on the road cross country. And during that process, you're around a bunch of people, bunch of business owners, big egos, great cars, great experience. Everybody likes to hype themselves up, hype up their experience, what they're doing. And, we got to meet standing in the back, watching all these people stroke each other's egos.
Oh my God. Definitely a lot of that. I wasn't prepared for all the testosterone. Like, nobody prepared me for that. And when I showed up, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Probably one of the very few women in that group. But I got to learn a lot from you guys and kind of really toughen up a little bit because, Gold Rush Rally is something you have to be prepared for it. Nobody gave me a heads up. They were just like, here you go.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart, and it's definitely meant for people that have stamina to just go.
Oh, yeah.
24/7. You got to have a lot of energy. You got to have a lot of adrenaline. And you've got to be on point with what you do and how you're operating your business because everybody's going to bombard you with questions about it. It's a big networking event, right?
You have to be on your toes. Like, no question about that, for sure.
The interesting part about that was like when we met, I was like, who are the quiet ones that are like watching how these people are interacting? And that's when we met and you started telling me about your business. And I'm always the type where when somebody asks me about mine, I'm like, no, we'll just stay away from that.
Oh, when you first met me, I was like super shy to myself. And I'm like kind of just, observing everything going on. And it was really interesting because you're, I think, which Porsche did you have? I forgot. You're driving a Porsche something.
I was driving a cup car that we'd converted for the street.
There you go. Yeah.
It was not anywhere near roadworthy.
It's been a long time since I've been in the car stuff, so I have it all backwards. But, that was a really cool experience, and it was something that I think you'll never forget. You'll never forget that.
No, I did it for about 8 years straight, and the interesting part about that is the people that I've met there and along the way through Gold Rush, Gumball, those people, they became like brothers and sisters.
Oh, yeah, they're
right?
like family, for sure. I still talk to people.
And you look at like where you're at now, going from shy to hosting a podcast, like here we go.
I know, exactly. Whenever I said shy, looking back, I could barely get two sentences out. And now it's like you can't shut me up. But the podcast is really cool because along my way, and part of this journey is I got to meet some really cool people like you. It's just so part of having you come on the podcast is I kind of wanted to see if you would kind of talk to us a little bit more about like your background, your experiences, and stuff like that.
So I own companies in technology, construction services, manufacturing, and distribution, including like an investment fund, which is investing in other companies and real estate. So I've got an opportunity to employ thousands of people.
Nice.
Each company, I think the smallest one we were talking about earlier is roughly like around 80 people, up towards roughly like 1,000 employees.
How do you do it? That's a lot of people.
Mental health.
There you go. Yeah.
Mental health is like the biggest thing. People talk about work-life balance and like being able to have a structure and creating discipline within themselves. I think hardest thing I've had to learn in business is how to manage my mental health. And being able to manage my mental health has led down some like dark roads. Also led to extremely successful opportunities within organizations, which they've either sold or, I've continued to grow them, sold them later. And acknowledging that within myself and being able to identify when things are going south, that's like the hardest thing to be disciplined about, because the first thing that you want to do when you run into a problem mentally is you think that you can figure it out on your own. And the reality is I can't, right?
Right.
And being able to look at mental health as like my job and managing that, it's also changed the way that I look at all my employees. When we talk about growth and things like how I've managed to build the companies, human capital is everything. And if you want to understand human capital and how to get them into the correct position, Jim Collins in Good to Great talks about constantly getting the right person on the right seat of the bus.
Right.
And so for me, I had to understand, like, what's my seat? Is it always going to be being the CEO?
Gotcha.
Some of those companies, no, because I don't have the knowledge, wherewithal, skill set to plug into that position and be like, hey, I'm going to run this organization. Other companies, absolutely. Also understanding, like, when that time and place comes for you to step down or hand the reins over to somebody else, understand, like, their skill set, their strengths, their ability, and allow them to pick up where you left off. Are people always going to operate the way you do? Absolutely not. Not at all. That's where, like, mental stability comes into place, right? Like,
It's such a great point. It's such a great point because mental health is a big topic, and part of having a clear mindset is a big thing. And I can kind of relate. Well, I can relate to you because I was going through some stuff and I decided to join these like women's groups, to go to these women groups and start talking. And this got me to a different level, right? So these issues that I was having, I would go to these women groups and I would talk about them out loud. And leaving there, I'm like clear-minded. It wasn't really the issue that I felt like I was keeping inside. I would get feedback from my peers and I would leave there on like a much better mental level. And I noticed everything in my life starting to run a lot smoother. So I'm a big fan of this like group. Like I go there every Wednesday. And we all kind of just, and it's about positivity too. It's not all about negativity. But it's really, really interesting because if you have this a negative mindset, or if your mental health isn't quite there, everything I've noticed just doesn't really fly straight. It just kind of starts going all over the place, like kind of bouncing all over.
Your mind's going to create that reality that directs the business the way your mind is.
That's how powerful your mind is. It's
one of my questions when I ask management, when I'm bringing people on for like C-level management or even mid-level managers, is I go through what are the last 3 things that they've actually manifested. Those are on my CEO questions. I'll send those to you afterwards.
Okay.
When I'm interviewing with them or when they're in the recruiting process, I get directly into manifestations. Why?
I love it.
Because I can see where their reality is putting them at that point in time in their life.
Yeah.
I can see where is this person capable of handling the obstacles that they're going to be faced with the other people below them and lead them into the future. Because if they can see things clearly or they have a different perception than we do, we're able to take that and add that to our core values and lead the company into the proper direction.
Absolutely. That's, one thing with obstacles, the way I used to handle them before was not good. Like an obstacle would come and I would just break, crumble. And I'm like, you know what? This is weak. Now I get excited when obstacles come because I look at them differently. I look at them as like time to learn. Like you learn and you grow through challenges and obstacles. So when they come my way now, I'm like, okay, bring it on. Like Because I know it's going to give me that opportunity to jump to that next level versus, where everything's just kind of even. So when you have something kind of go like this, you know that you're about to...
Obstacles, however you want to put that. I mean, the universe is going to put anything it can in your way to challenge you to grow. And when you're a business owner, just expect the universe to constantly be throwing everything it's got at you. People refer to that as like Murphy's Law. Whatever can happen will happen.
Right.
Not whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Think about it in terms of like the universe is going to give me this.
Right.
They're going to give my company an opportunity to overcome something great so we can get to a place that is 10 times better than where we were at.
Right.
Understanding those things, that is the power in like having the right human capital, having the right people in the right seats of the bus, because you're able to get over those things and come out on top. And then once you're on top, you look at everybody's mental health across the board. And, things that we look at in all of our organizations are, what are people's strengths? That's a typical thing, profile testing people based off abilities, skill set. But the biggest one that we had came across since COVID was emotional intelligence. Identifying people's emotional intelligence and helping be the dictator of where we set our goals, how we're able to get over the obstacles in the future and where we're going in the future. And looking at that from the people standpoint versus the spreadsheet and the numbers, which every private equity fund, every bank is going to look at and tell you, like, this is what you should be doing. As a business owner, you're in the business of managing people. You're in the business of helping people get where they want to be in life. And if they choose to take your opportunity in the position that you offer them, it is now my responsibility to help them with those obstacles long term and create that balance for them. A lot of employers don't look at things like this.
The way you said it, I'm like, wow, that's really, really cool. The mindset there is like where you're getting that person to where they want to go, because I've been employed by people where I'm just technically like an employee given a certain amount of task, and they could really care less where it takes me or goes. And that really shows that you not only employ people, but you want to help empower people. And I think that's very beautiful.
Well, thanks. I mean, if I look at like what it takes to empower somebody, from an overhead and cash flow business development management standpoint, what gets you to 10 million to 20 million to 50 to 100 million doesn't work when you get over, once you hit 120, 150, 200 million. You have a completely different infrastructure. And you're dealing with such a large scale of things that everybody's mental health, based off what they're attached to and the outcome, is
absolutely.
You're like direly responsible for that, because if one thing goes wrong within that, you want to know, like, hey, the universe threw this at us. Were we able to overcome it? And how are we doing that in the future to maintain this growth and opportunity for everybody else?
Well, one day I'll get to that level. I'm working on it, Ryan. I'm working on it. It's wow.
It's a slow process. I started when I was 15. So it's.
That's yeah. So I think when you were 15, you had a business that.
We were doing lawns. We were mowing lawns, and this is like the late 90s, like when the disposable income was like coming about, two household incomes, $20 a week for mowing lawns. Nobody thought a bunch of 15-year-olds were going to mow over 500 lawns a week, and pulling in roughly like $30,000 a month in cash. People were like, "Who are these kids?" Well, we were the poor kids from the other side of town, right?
Right. That's
found a way to make things work.
And so that's kind of like where it all started, where you started your first business at 15, and you've grown from there to...
Yeah, we were trying to figure out how to manage it. Me and another kid in high school, we were 15, and we bought an Oracle point of sale system, and we ended up hacking into that while we were mowing lawns. We hacked into that, and then we ended up creating a database at 19, sold it to Oracle, and it's been off to the races ever since.
Wow, that's really okay. So that's really
huge shift in vertical. We went from home services to technology to database management, and then
Unbelievable.
underwriting, all types of things.
Wow. Wow. That's unbelievable. I mean, it's just it's just such a great story, and like to see just how you've connected the two was like very very impressive. Very, very, very impressive.
Data. It's all about data.
I know. Oh, I was in the data industry myself for a little bit. So when you use data, I was like, you know what? That's what it's all about. I mean, that is what the world is all about right now. So,
Monetizing the people that you come in contact with. The first thing I tell people when they're asking me, like, who do you call? And I'm like, well, how many contacts are in your phone? And they're like, 500. Well, you got 500 people that you can start with.
oh yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point.
You ever meet somebody that doesn't save numbers in their phone?
No.
Well, I don't save a lot of people's numbers because at some point I make the decision that I'm not going to be able to network with
Well,
them.
I do that when I go out and I really don't want the guy's number.
Yeah, you have that problem. Dad life over here, we're not into that.
I just had to throw that out there. Okay. So like basically your phone is a great way. So you have something going on. You have that many contacts you can reach out to with whatever you have going on at the moment. And if you don't want them to have the information, you don't save their number, right?
That's one way to think about it, yeah.
Okay. Got it. Got it. So
I met somebody once that put my number in the notes of their phone, and I was like, excuse me, why are you putting this in the notes of your phone? And they're like, because if I save it in my contacts, I'm not going to use it.
This doesn't make sense to me.
Because they're so used to saving people's numbers and contacts in their phone.
Oh, so
just
they
as a
have
part of
so
networking.
many.
Now they have to
Now
go
I
back
get it.
through their notes and identify,
Blonde
how did I
moment.
meet this person?
I totally get it now. That was a total blonde moment. Okay, hello. So they basically have oversaturated all of their contacts. So people that they really, really want to have their contact information, they save it in their notes.
Yeah.
So maybe they should start deleting some contacts. Clean.
Easiest way to delete contacts is if you send them a text message out of your CRM. If everybody's in there and they respond that they want to unsubscribe to it, that's the fastest way to remove people off your list.
That's good information. I'm actually going to do that.
Absolutely.
That's great advice. I really, really like that. Is there like any like notable accomplishments or projects you have going on right now that you would like to share?
Notable accomplishments. Well, I'm a successful father of 3. I've managed to, amongst having multiple businesses, prioritize my life to where my kids and family come before my business. That wasn't always the case. For 20 plus years, since I was 15, actually, my business came before everything. And when I was putting my business before everything, I found, there was a lot of outliers that sucked me back in, that kept me drawn to just business. And the business became my purpose and why. Mm-hmm. And even during and having kids, it took away from that. It took away from my ability to prioritize that as fast as I was growing the companies. And it's funny because for years, I was so fast paced and so eager to grow my companies and get accolades, get awards, get all these things that you're asking me about. And I could brag till the end of time about all of the accomplishments from each organization. Mm-hmm. However, what would happen after that is I would go home and I would rush my kids through life, meaning like I'd rush them through activities. I'd rush them through like racing, motorcycle racing, horseback riding, like all of these things. I would push them so fast and so hard that my whole life was like accelerated. And I couldn't just stop and say, okay, hey, look, I'm going to prioritize it this way so that my real accomplishments are shown based off who I am.
That's awesome.
And that's like the biggest thing that I think every business owner does not show the rest of the world.
That's amazing. Like that was a huge question for me, was how do you prioritize all that you have going on. You have a beautiful family, you have your businesses, and you're balancing all of them. And it's really, really, I follow you on Facebook, and you have some of the most cutest pictures I've ever seen. Your kids are just absolutely adorable. Your family is beautiful. And your companies are there as well. So the fact that you're able to, maintain and do all of these, and like, it's not the easiest thing. Like, I see people, they're great at business, but then the family lacks. Then they're great at family, but then the business lacks. So it's kind of finding that happy medium, that happy balance, and then also finding time for you as well, and your mental health and your stuff. So it's like you have so much on your plate, but you're doing it. You got it.
Yeah, the number one compliment that I've gotten over the past 3 years is they're no longer shocked at the size and scope of my companies. Mm-hmm. They're more shocked at how I've managed to turn around and show up in my kids' lives and be the dad and parent that I need to be. Mm-hmm. That the best compliment I've ever been given is by somebody that mentored me from Accenture. He turned around after seeing all my stuff and coming to my house, turned around and said, "Ryan, you're the best dad that I know."
I've actually heard this from other guys in Gold Rush Rally saying, "What an amazing father you are." So yes, I've heard the rumor that you are definitely super dad and super business owner as well. So
yeah, the businesses are great. I have great management, great teams in place. What I was telling you earlier, those are things that are like live and in action all day. And what's important to me goes through to that staff. If I got a guy that works for me and he calls me and he's at home with his kids, I'm like, get off of your phone, right? Mm-hmm. There's nothing that you and I have to transact over right this moment that is more important than your relationship with your kids.
That's really thoughtful and beautiful. Like, I've heard and been around bosses where they're like, they feel like, everything, they're paying you, everything comes first before anything else. And the fact that, somebody works for you and you're able to let to do that for them as well, I think that's really awesome. That's really, really
well, mental health and stuff like that I'm telling you about. Like, I've been sober 20 plus years, 21 years. And, the first person that I called when I was in, facing problems within my family was I called an employee that I watched go through this for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And he was the first person I contacted, said, "Hey, I don't know what to do," right? You then turn to the people that have relied upon you, that have been through things that you're not familiar with. And I was able to do that. And, when they say it takes a village with a family, it also takes an entire staff to run a business. Mm-hmm. And when I put things in perspective, my ability to do that with my staff within the organizations allows them to understand the true nature, like how human the entrepreneur is, how human the CEO or owner is, whatever your position is in a business that you own. People are so quick to think that they don't understand the role that you're in. And I've found that to be entirely not true. When people are just as invested into your company as you are, you'll find that they will do anything and they will go to great lengths to help you overcome those things.
That's amazing. It's not like it's like a team. It's like a family. It's really. Can I work for you?
It's a massive family across the entire country.
Everybody wants to know, are you hiring? So are there like any advice or tips that you would want to give to our listeners?
Yes.
Come on, give it.
The biggest advice I could give anybody is don't have a plan B.
Ooh.
Don't set yourself up to say, okay, if this doesn't work, I'm going to go try something else. If you commit to it, like really commit to it and go all in, it'll bring you more than you could have ever imagined. Don't think, okay, I've got something that'll help me in this scenario or that scenario. Mm-hmm. Just commit to it. follow through. Go from point A to point B. You know, I see companies all the time saying, well, we pivoted. You know, tech companies are infamous for pivoting. Well, that's because they're taking on other people's money that don't own the company. It's no longer their idea. It's no longer their IP. And they pivot direction so they can go in a direction that makes that company money, right? As a business owner, I don't have a plan B. I see things all the way through. And if it doesn't work, that's a universe telling me, hey, here's another experience for you. And I've had colossal failures that I thought I wouldn't ever recover from personally on the financial, mental, physical side. But what I've learned the most is like I commit to what I'm doing, right? I go all in. And by going all in, it's not going to fail. Because when you're all in, your mindset is in the right place. You're physically committed to it, and then spiritually, you're able to like forecast, and you're able to like literally make those things happen. There's no plan B. There's no bailout. There's no, if this doesn't work in my life. When I take on the risk, that becomes my responsibility.
I love that. That is such a great tip and piece. I'm actually using that for myself as well, because one thing I would say is okay, now the company's going to do a pivot. But then every time you pivot, you kind of start changing your company, and you're going 10 different directions. Instead of keeping your eye right on the goal, right on the topic, it's almost it's easy to say, okay, well, let's just pivot the company and go this way because this way seems better. But then I noticed with myself, if I go all in, like you said, and I dedicate myself 100%, I eat, I sleep, eat, breathe, and I'm just all about whatever I want to happen and manifesting about it over and over and over in my head. It happens. I don't know how to explain it. It's the universe. It's your mindset. But it will happen. I can't explain it.
Always.
But
always will happen.
I mean, everything you've said today has, I can relate with. I'm like, well, I love there's no plan B. Because, if there's a plan B, stick to plan A. Because what? You're going to have the same struggles with plan B. So what are you going to do? Go to plan C? Go to plan D? Next thing you know, you're through the alphabet. So why don't you just stay with plan A, go over those obstacles and those hurdles, fight ride the wave, and then there you have it.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. There's days where I started things and I never thought they would get to where they're at. I always wanted to do these magazines, being, in women's fitness, being all these different things. Worked at it. No, nobody ever noticed me. Nobody ever even noticed who I was. 4 years later, we're getting print. We're every time I open my Instagram, there's somebody reposting my stuff. And it's cool, but now I'm kind of to the point where what's the next step? I got enough. What you were saying in the beginning, I got enough of those awards and those trophies and stuff like that. And it's after a while, it's kind of maybe it's time to focus on the family.
Well, the biggest trophy I've had in business is what I was telling you, the colossal failure.
Yeah.
I had no plan B. I was fully committed. And when I lost so big that I was there's no way I'm going to be able to recover in all aspects of my life. And the reality is I was able to take what the universe had given me as a result of failing on my plan A, and within my other organizations, refocus on plan A and make sure that became the lifeline of what we do. And there was all of a sudden no excuse for failure. And when that trickles down into the rest of your staff, people that you employ across the country, they see those things and they take action just as fast as you do.
That's awesome. Thank you for coming on. I definitely, everything that you've shared with me today and shared with us live is just very inspirational for not just, I know like I've been, a young entrepreneur since, okay, cut that. I've been in like, yeah, we'll just cut that. Stumble on some words here, but it's okay. That's why we have edit. But thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much for your time and coming on the Product Buzz. And it's been a real pleasure. And I know you're a very, very busy guy and a family guy, and you have all this stuff. So thank you for making the time to come on the show for us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. You have a wonderful day.
You too.